right, so we're going to get started. I'll let those of you who are still ambling continue to amble. Our next speaker will be Blake Hill. He is the Senior Director of Quality Assurance and Agile Delivery at AccentCard. Blake is an award-winning IT leader with extensive experience in quality assurance, agile, and transformative leadership. He's currently serving as the title I just mentioned, where he has effectively led global teams to streamline processes, improve operational efficiency. And his expertise include developing and implementing QA strategies, agile transformation, and cross-functional collaboration, which has helped with driving some quality improvements. Without further ado, I'd love to hand it over to Blake. Join me in welcoming him. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hope everybody is having a good morning. It's very nice to be here. Let me get this going here. All right. Hopefully we'll be able to, let me know if you guys can see that. All right. Does that look good? All right. All right. So you're probably wondering, why are we talking about this and what the heck does this even mean? Because I'm wondering myself. So I had to come up with something that kind of would encapsulate the things that I like to talk about. So basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you guys some things that I've learned, in my own career, and that's what I'm going to try to do is just share some things. I wish I could tell you I had a great little formula that everybody could take back home and just, transform everything and make it perfect, right? And things would just be dynamic. What I actually hope for is that I share something today that maybe there's one morsel or maybe there's two gems that you get out of what is shared here, and maybe you can take it back and implement it. Maybe it can actually make some change in your organization, in your QA department, whatever job you have. That's really my goal here. So QUAGILEOLOGY, I have a background in QA. I have a master's in quality management from Alabama. I have an undergrad in psychology, and I've been a Scrum Master doing Agile for 15 years. So I merged the three things together. That's how I orient my world. It's how I lead my teams. If you had three things that you were passionate about, you'd probably have three other things that color your world. Those are the three things that color mine. So that's how I kind of understand things. So this is my point of view, my perspective on how I approach things. So that's basically what I'm talking about here on this first slide. So it's a silly name, right? Whenever you say something silly, it's probably going to stick. So I'm not proud. I'm not trying to corner the market on being a genius. That's not going to happen. But so QUAGILEOLOGY, three things that kind of go together. And again, this is just kind of how I view things. So the first thing that I wanted to touch on is having to do with the psychology of the QUAGILEOLOGY thing. And I think is, how many of you people here actually lead a team? Have anyone that reports to you in any capacity, or you lead projects? So all of you have the ability to make an impact on other people. And I think that's probably the greatest thing that we can have. I think it's probably one of the biggest responsibilities we have. I think it's something that we overlook sometimes in QA. I think it's sometimes we overlook in IT, period. And I just got shared with, Lanessa just told me something that stuck with me, and it's exactly what I'm saying here, is that there is a human side of software. It gets left behind oftentimes. What do we talk about? We talk about projects. We talk about deliverables. We talk about milestones. We talk about resources. We talk about contractors. There's actual people that we're working with here. And if we want to have any kind of impact on quality, you have to have a passion for people. And you're like, it can't, and it has to be something that is very genuine. When you have a team or you meet with people, you talk with people, they're gonna know in 5 minutes if they actually believe what you're saying. They're gonna size you up in 5 minutes. I mean, they're gonna tell if you have a passion, they're gonna tell if you care, or are you just a manager? You're just pushing stuff down, just delegating things, you don't talk to them, your door is closed, whatever. So if you have a passion for people, you actually have a chance to make an impact on things. And the best way you can do that is by being transparent from a leadership position. That doesn't mean you have to tell them, oh, I think my boss is a jackass. You don't have to say that, or I disagree with my boss, or this is wrong, or whatever. What it is just being transparent, showing people about how you feel. I can give you a great example. We have a new CEO at my company. And on the very first day that she came in, she had a meeting. She turned on her Zoom camera. It wasn't pre-recorded. It wasn't pre-scripted. She got on there, talked to the entire company of 33,000 people, and she just shared some things. She shared things about her family. We're in home health care and hospice, and she shared some things that were very personal to her about some of those experiences that she had with her family. So she became an actual human being to the entire organization. And in about 5 minutes, I already liked her. I was like, she knows exactly what she's doing. She actually cares about people. She's all about people. And you could tell that in 5 minutes of talking to her. And here we are 9 months later that she's been leading the organization. The organization has never done better than it's done in the last 3.5 years that I've been there. We've never done as well as we're doing right now, and it all happens at the top. It happens with leadership. She set the example about showing that she had a passion for people. She was being transparent. When you're transparent, you build trust. People actually believe you when you're transparent, because people know inevitably anyway if you're probably not telling the truth. They know. You might think they don't know. They're just telling you that they don't know, but they really know that you're not being transparent. It's pretty obvious, and I think it's super important, you know, at a lot of companies, I talk to people and they're like, you know, yeah, we're implementing that we have to have one-on-ones with people. And I'm just thinking, that's a pretty low bar that we're having to implement one-on-ones with people. I mean, if you're a manager and someone's having to implement that you're having a one-on-one with someone, I mean, I don't know, I'd have to, why are you in management? I mean, it's about the people. Sometimes people ask, you know, why did you go into management? Well, I have a passion for people. You know, if you put your people first, they'll take care of your projects. And I get asked sometimes, like, how do you manage your projects? I don't manage projects. I manage my team, and I don't hopefully manage them. Hopefully I work for my team, and they take care of the projects. And when they take care of the projects, everything works seamlessly because they're empowered and, you know, we're transparent. I've tried to build that trust for them. There are statistics, and I won't reference what it was, but seven months to build trust in a team. It takes 7 months to build a trust. To where, so I think that, and we'll come back to this point in a minute, but 7 months is a long time if you think about that. It's really, I mean, that's working with someone, you know, 5 days a week, you know, so that's, if you think about that, that's a lot of days to actually where a team can get together and build trust. And it's not easy to do because people are messy, you know, we're emotional, you know, we can make bad decisions, we can do things, but people are messy. I had a pastor one time tell me, this will probably be the one thing you remember of anything I say today, is he said, where there's people, there's poop. And that is literally one of the greatest sayings I think I've ever heard in my life. And I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't, but it's true. Where there's people, there's gonna be a mess. And so, you know, you have to be able to navigate that. People have to be able to work with one another, overlook that, be open with one another, be transparent, build that trust. When you can do that, you can have a very good team and a good foundation for a team. We're not often taught how to actually manage teams or psychology of teams. What we do is we get a bunch of resources together for a project that has a deliverable that's not realistic, and so we think we can add more people to the project to make it happen faster, and then we try to get it done, and then we get rid of everybody that we just brought on, and then we go to the next project. So does anyone ever had that happen? Anyone? Like all the time? Yeah. So you don't have to raise your hands. This is probably being recorded. You don't want your bosses to see that you're raising your hand, so I understand. So yeah, I think that's just super important is that if you think about it, the Los Angeles Lakers, they go every year and they try to buy all the best free agents and win a championship, and they haven't done that in a while, and I freaking love it. I think that's awesome. But the reason why is because teams, in what other industry are we asked to get a bunch of people together that have never worked together and build something that's never been built before and then deliver it with world-class quality? We don't even ask the Los Angeles Lakers to do that without having a training camp, without having practice, without having preparation for that. You can't just take a whole bunch of people, 5 great individuals, they're not gonna automatically deliver great software. If I'm working with a recruiting company and they say, I've got the 5 best people you've ever seen in your life, I'm more worried about how do they communicate? You know, what are they like? What's their culture like? How do they approach work? So everybody has a role to play. You can get 5 great people. It's not going to do anything sometimes. Sometimes you might get lucky and you might hit a good project, right? If everything's really straightforward and the stars align and everything's perfect. But having that passion for people, I think, is really a huge thing. I think the second thing that we could talk about would be having purposeful process. Yes, these all start with P's. That's how you will hopefully remember this stuff. So purposeful process, and what I'm talking about is, you know, do you actually have a defined process in your QA department, whatever it might be, or any department for that matter, but is there an agreed upon process that everyone has had input into, that everyone has put their thumbs on the table and said, yes, we all agree, this is how we're going to do work. And that even comes down to how are we going to interact with one another. And I didn't bring up the concept of safe agile, so I'm not going to take any credit for that, obviously. But there is a reason why teams have to decide what their values are and how they're going to work together. And that comes from having a leader that would actually lead them through that process. You know, if a leader's not doing that, then we're missing out. We need to set the, you know, there's this old concept, you know, if you let the cows out to pasture, but you don't have any fences, you're going to have a hard time finding your cows. So you've got to kind of set up front, these are the expectations of the team. This is how we're going to work together so that everybody knows what the expectations are and people are going to follow by example. It's super important that we do that. And I think teams also have to have the ability, you hear fail fast in Agile, right? Shift left, fail fast. What I like to say, and I tell people when I talk with them and they're interviewing with me for a job, is I want you to fail gloriously. Just make a big old nasty mistake, and we'll just make a huge mistake, and then we'll laugh about it, and we'll learn from it, and it won't be a big deal. If we make that same mistake 3 or 4 times, we've got a problem. But the point being is, you can't be successful without making mistakes. I mean, this is common sense. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I just tell my team, fail gloriously. If you're gonna make a mistake, make a big mistake, and you know what? It's okay. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. Even if I had someone on my team one time drop a database in production, and we just sat there and we're watching records just disappear, and it wouldn't stop, and we couldn't get it to stop. And you know, we recovered from it. I'm sure you guys all have a story like that. We were able to get it back from tape. That tells you how old I am. And we were able to restore the database. So there's nothing that you can't recover from. So I think it's super important. You know, we talk about this. We're talking about purposeful process, and another concept or thought, everything is a service, right? So why don't we just make quality as a service? And when I say quality as a service, what I'm talking about is customer service. So there's 2 definitions of quality that you could have. You could say quality is, you know, making sure that, you know, we have the adherence to requirements. You could say it's the absence of defects. That's quality. I would argue the third thing would be, and probably even more important, would be quality is if your customer's happy. And that doesn't matter what you're delivering. Your customers can handle some level of defect. They don't care about that. What they care about is how do you respond when that defect is found, and do you care? And how do you treat people? And what's your response time on that? And how do you remediate it? And how do you tell them you're not gonna, what are you gonna do in the future going forward? So whenever I'm trying to have a purposeful process, I'm trying to like run my team as like a customer service organization. Forget that it's a quality assurance organization. That's irrelevant. It could be a development organization. They're still providing something to someone. So if you have that purposeful process, everybody agrees to it, you have a good foundation, obviously. And then I think the third thing that is super important is talking about providing proof. And I think this is hugely important. I think you've got to have metrics. I mean, you have to measure what matters. And what might matter to my team might not matter to your team. But whatever those things are that matter, find what they are, whatever they are. You know, it could be that you want low escape defects. I listed some things here. These are things that matter to me at my job. So I'm just sharing with you some things that matter. Ideal velocity, what is that? So I came up with the concept of, we had a lot of defects at one point, and when we started. And so I was wondering, so how many story points are we not delivering, because we run an Agile team? How many story points are we not delivering because we have so many defects? So I just, at a high level, I figured out how many team members we had, how much money an hour. I figured out how many hours we're working in the sprint. I did some math, and I was able to basically come up with how much a defect would cost us. And I said, you know, I think a defect is basically half a story point. And I did some research on that to see what other teams had did, so that's where I landed. So I was able to figure out, you know, if we had like 30 defects in a sprint, let's say, I could figure out how many points we were costing ourselves on delivery, meaning our product team could have gotten 2 or 3 more stories delivered, but we couldn't because we had way too many defects. The other reason I created that defect was it shows it's an inclusive defect. It's not just QA, it's development as well. And not only is it development as well, it's the business analysis team, and you can see that on here. We have one for them a little bit further down called scope creep. So we track scope creep, and instead of calling that scope creep, we call it missed requirements, because that's what it really is at the end of the day. It's a missed requirement. It was either not caught soon enough, you know, we don't usually call it that. We call it scope creep, and it has to go in, and we identify our scope creep by product's fault, our fault. And if it's our fault, we take the blame. We take the metric. We record it. We count it against us. And we take all of these metrics right here, and we send them out to the entire IT organization and to all of our customers. So that's back to transparency that we talked about earlier. We put them out there, and we prove that we have skin in the game. Agile talks about having skin in the game, right? So we're having skin in the game by sharing our metrics and making sure that everybody sees them, and now we're accountable for that. And then we're accountable to try to make those metrics better. So another thing that we do is NPS. And so when I was talking about quality as a service, this is really where this ties in. And honestly, if I could point to one thing that I think changed the place that I've worked and broke down all the negativity that was existing between IT and product and all that, it was this. Came up with the concept of we're going to take NPS, which is usually used for external customers. Most of my customers are internal at my company because we make software for clinicians and nurses to go out into the field, and they use that. So 33,000 people, you can imagine we have a lot of customers. What can we do to get feedback from them, and how happy are they with what we're delivering? So we did the NPS internally and used something that's typically a marketing tool and wanted to use it for development. And then we got the scores, and everybody was a little bit worried about that when we did it, because when we started, I spent like the first 4 months talking to the VP of product like daily about stuff that was in production that I didn't know about, that's broken, and why is it broken? And I'm like, dude, I just started like 2 weeks ago. I'm not really sure, but we'll figure it out. So what we did is we started with the NPS score, and an NPS score, if you're familiar with it, runs from -100 to 100. And anything in the negative, obviously, is terrible. And anything in the positive, incrementally, 0 to 20 is okay. And then there's different scores all the way up to where if you reach 70, that's like world class. And so we did an NPS score, and everybody was very scared about it. And I wasn't too scared about it because I pretty much knew it wasn't going to be good. So we'll talk about what happened here. I went back and found some old slides from when I did this initially. So this is way old. This is like from when we first started. But I think we got a -37 right out of the gate. And it was like, well, you know, the team was kind of aghast, if you will. And they were like, oh my gosh. I'm like, they just did you the biggest favor they could have ever done you. I was like, they started you off. You have nowhere to go but up. I mean, at that point, a -70 versus a -37 is irrelevant. It's like when it's 120 in Phoenix and they say it's 125. Who cares? I mean, does it matter? My tires are melting regardless. So we started at -37, and the team, we started measuring what matters. We started taking our metrics. We started being transparent with them throughout the organization. We asked for feedback. We didn't try to hide from anything. You can see what happened there. Basically, just from May to June, we jumped. July, August, September, October, November. Long story short, as that continues to grow, this is a more recent version, but not the most recent version. So basically 19 consecutive months, I think is now 25 consecutive months, over 70 that the team has had. This is a specific team within our organization. So obviously they increased their score a maximum of 137 points. And they've been sitting, last month they had a score of 70, which is the lowest score they've had in a long time, which is right on the world-class marker. Does this have anything to do with anything other than caring about people? That's really where this all starts. We cared about our customers. We worry about, we talk a lot about quality assurance. That's great. Quality assurance is great. All the tools that we have and everything, quality processes. Having a quality team, we never talk about that in the industry. Like, how do we know if we have a quality team? And I think these are some things that could maybe be helpful on how do we have a quality team. I would say in closure, and we can go to some questions if you guys want, at the end of the day, it matters, it's on management, period, end of story. If you're a leader, if you're a manager, whatever it is, it's on us to make an impact on people. We work for them, they don't work for us. And if you take the time and you work for your people and they feel like you care about them and you're invested in them, you have a plan for them and everything, they will move mountains. They will move these kind of mountains. I didn't do any of that. My team did that. My team did all of that work. They became self-managing, which is the goal, because they were empowered to go. They agreed upon how they were going to work. They were trusted. We were transparent with them. We gave them the power to do it, and they did it. I couldn't make up a graph like that. That's ridiculous. I tell the team that I work with right now, I'll never work with a better team than you guys. I couldn't. Statistically, I probably couldn't have a better team, no matter where I go. But that's how we can affect change with quality. And I think with the whole psychology, Agile, I think Agile is obviously super important. Didn't touch on that quite as much, but I think the whole gist of that is that, you know, having self-managing teams, and it didn't start that way, right? It was baby steps. They didn't become self-managing after 2 or 3 weeks. It took a while. It's that whole storming, norming, forming, and performing psychology thing. That happens with Agile teams as well, and it takes a minute. And if it takes 7 months to build trust, we've got to somehow, as an IT, I don't know, IT world, we have to somehow figure out how can we set teams up to be successful instead of having them pull victory from the jaws of defeat, because that's what usually happens. Teams are usually successful because they pull victory away from defeat instead of being set up to be successful out of the gate. So hopefully these are some things that might be helpful, you know, to anybody in the room. And I think I talked with Anna, and she said that these, if you guys want this slide or whatever, you know, I'd be more than happy to share it in the future. If you guys want, she said she might put it out somewhere where you guys could access it at a later date. But I'm going to stop there because first of all, I don't want to go long, and I wanted to leave time for any questions, if anybody had any questions at all. Yes?
If you set your NPS score as your KPI, how do you prevent your team from asking people, please, if you think good about us, give us 5-star review. But if you don't think good about us, don't thanks.
So okay, so he's asking how do we not like artificially inflate the NPS score, like to where we could make it look better for ourselves, and that's a fair question. So the NPS score, the team doesn't know who the NPS score goes out to. So we send it out to customers, and we have a big bulk of people that it goes out to. We don't even know who responds. So, and they don't have the link to send it out. So I send out the link to the team, and it's anonymous. I use a third-party app. If you guys are wanting to know about it, it's called Survicate. It's free. It's free up until a certain amount of responses, but it's SURVICATE. So they're anonymous that come in. I can't see who's replying at all. I just know that someone voted, and I can see the score. So it gets sent out to a group of people. They have 2 days to respond, and I'll send one reminder, and that's it. And whoever votes, votes. I keep track of the participation too. The participation on average is about 60 to 65%, which 65% is where you want to be. So that's not bad. So I feel pretty good. I'd love to have a higher percentage, and you know, whatever I've done, I can't get more than that to respond, but I'm pretty happy with that. But I guess there could be a way to game the system if they knew who it was going to, and they said, hey, if you get it, could you vote this way? But you can't vote more than once from the same machine, that kind of thing. So I can't tell you 1,000%, but I think we've done this long enough over 3 years that I can tell that if people were trying to game the system, I don't know. I don't think it would. I don't know. I don't think that's. I don't think it's happening. I could put it that way, but it's a valid question. It's a valid question. Yeah. Hello. Hey, Jerry.
Hey, what are your thoughts on the role that hiring plays in building the kind of teams you're talking about?
I think the people that you hire is everything. I mean, it's everything, especially if you're new. I got to hire some people right out of the gate, which was perfect, right? Because I got to pick what I wanted. But I mean, I got to inherit some people, but then I also hired some people. But so the people that I hired, the people that were there got to see what I was looking for. But then I made sure that I was very upfront. You know, if you're like a servant leader, I guess that's what you could call this if you wanted to in some aspect, that doesn't mean you're a floor mat, right? You've got to set some boundaries. You have to be able to stand up for your team. You have to be able to call them out in a nice way, not negatively, but you should be there to like encourage them and say, yeah, we've made a mistake, but hey, we can do better than this. You've done better than this. We can do better than this. But when you hire those people, you've got to decide what kind of culture you want to have, and then you get those people. You get those people, and you don't compromise on and get someone who doesn't fit that, whatever that profile is you have in your head, whatever it is you value, that's what you hire. You don't make concessions. And I was just talking about this also right before I came up here, is when I get, sometimes it's hard. You get resumes, they all look the same, right? You talk to people, they sound alike. What's the differentiator? Like, what could be a key differentiator when you're hiring someone, regardless of all the things I've said, that would really make you pick the right person? I will always pick one of two things as the differentiator. Who's the better communicator, That's massive, especially in IT. We're not all known for being great communicators. We're nerds, and people think that we want to sit in ourselves on the computer, and that's all we want to do all the time. But the other thing is, who's passionate? Like when they talk about quality and they're hiring, like I have one question I'll ask during the hiring process, and they're automatically hired. And I'm not joking. If they say this, the interview's over. And I've done it twice. And I'll say, why did you pick QA as your profession? Because I love to break things, you're hired. Done. That's it. Because they're passionate. That's it. I love to break things, and their face lights up. I love breaking things. Well, geez, what else could I ask for? I mean, that's perfect. So I think hiring the people that you have is great. I think it also shows the people that are already there what the expectation is, but you've also got to be open enough and transparent enough to share what the expectations are going forward. And you want to do that right when you start, because it's hard to go backwards, right? It's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. So, any other questions? Yes. Vanessa?
Oh, I get a mic. Blake, I love the courage that you and your team took in putting out the NPS scores, especially with the, quality can be nebulous, right? Depends on who you ask what quality is.
Right.
But what I'm curious about is, as you all got into this practice and it's publicized everywhere, to what extent have you seen this ripple into other departments and sort of inform maybe how people look at things and operate?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that, actually. So it has rippled into other departments. It's just morphed in a kind of a different fashion. And the question that we ask, just so you guys know, an NPS is one question. Just so you know, it's a one-question survey. And it's basically, how happy are you with the latest software release we had? That's what we ask. That's it. How happy are you with the last one? Not in general, just how happy are you with the last one? And so I just thought I'd throw that out there. And so where we saw it trickle down is my CIO saw this, and he and I talked, and he said, what other applications do we have for this? And I said, why don't we use it for employee engagement? And I said, because we have a yearly survey that comes out where they ask us, how are we doing and everything. But I think I was talking with someone earlier, and they were saying, there's these yearly surveys that come out, and then we do things, and then the number one question is, we don't think you're going to do anything with this. You know what I mean? We're going to answer it, but you're not going to do anything with it. And I think that's how people generally feel. So I was like, 12 months is a long time. You're only getting feedback from the people. So I asked the CIO, I said, why don't we implement what's called ENPS, which is Employee Net Promoter Score, and why don't we ping our people every month? And let's get a barometer on a monthly basis for all the people in just IT, so this is just for our IT department in the company, and let's see how they feel about, and the question we ask them there is, how connected do you feel to the leadership in IT? And that will tell all of us as managers or directors or VPs, whatever you are, how good of a job are you doing? And then we share our scores. We share them back to the people immediately. We share them. This is what you gave us. And the first one we had on that was a -29. And the most recent score we've had, we've been doing it since January of 2023. And so the employees so basically -29, employees were not satisfied. Obviously, -29, not good, not happy at all. -29 has gone around to, our most recent score is 29. So 58 points. It's like 200% increase. And why is that happening? Well, because people know now that we care. And we're not just telling people we care, we're showing that we care. We've changed some other things and everything, but that's been the number one thing. And then our CIO has implemented that all of his leaders have to have their own. He wants to know, not because we're doing it at his level, right? How happy are you? So he wants all of his leaders to have their own score so they can see how they're affecting the big score. So, Bob over here has a 30, Vanessa has a 50, someone else has a -10. Okay, we've got a problem here. What can we do to fix it? So that's probably been the biggest application. Okay, I think we're good on time, so I don't want to run long. I appreciate you guys coming to this, and you guys have a great day.